When I was 9, my mom, little sister, and I lived in a small house on the edge of a quiet town. The street wasn't loud, just kids riding bikes out front in summer, leaves rustling underfoot when you walk too slow. But even then, something about that house felt off. Mom said old houses made noises. That's normal. It started one night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, blanket pulled tight to my chin, staring at the glow in the dark stars on the ceiling. I told myself it was just wind until one shadow didn't move like the rest. It sat in the corner, right by my toy chest. I felt cold, not from air, but inside me crawling up my spine. I pulled the blanket over my head and fell asleep. The next morning, I didn't think about it until I saw my toy chest. It was wide open, like someone had been rummaging through it. I closed it quietly, said nothing. A few weeks later, my little sister, who was 5, told Mom she didn't like the man in the closet. She said it casually, as though he were just a fact. Mom brushed it off. Kids imagine things. But I saw her face. She wasn't kidding. That night, I heard something dragging across my floor. Not heavy footsteps, more like nails scraping wood. I froze in bed, heart pounding so loud I could feel it echo in my throat. The sound stopped right beside my bed. If I looked over the side, maybe, I'd see something staring back at me. I held my breath until I drifted off again. The next morning, long scratches marred the floor near my bed, fresh and deep, as if someone had carved them with. She got angry. You must have dragged something sharp. I swore I hadn't, but she didn't believe me anymore. Faint whispers, not voices exactly. More like a radio on low static. I never saw him, but I believed her. That was it. The scariest night came during winter midnight. Then footsteps came down the hall. The door creaked open. A tall, dark shape leaned in, and I was alone. The next morning, I asked Mom if she'd come in. My sister told me too. I saw him again. I backed away and waited outside until Mom came home. She said, "The cat knocked things over." She hesitated, then nodded. She never told us because she didn't want to scare us, but she admitted she believed something was wrong with the place. She said it was a man, someone who used to live there. Never much more than that, but I knew what I saw, and so did my sister. Even now, as an adult, when I think about those nights, I still feel sick in my stomach. Was it imagination or something real and hungry? When I was 10, we moved into a bigger house. Mom had just remarried. We needed space. It was nice, newer than the old one, quiet neighborhood with big trees. At first, everything felt right. I woke up around midnight, heard something moving inside the closet, soft shuffling, like clothes brushing against fabric. I told myself it was just settling. Everyone hears that kind of noise when you're a kid. Then I saw the door move. Not swing open, but tremble slightly, as if someone had pressed on it from within. I wanted to run to Mom's room, but I froze. Stared at the closet until sleep came back. The next morning, the closet door was cracked open, just an inch. I'd shut it tight. I asked Mom if she'd gone in there. She said no, maybe air pushed it, but I knew it wasn't wind. After that, nights got worse. Tapping on window glass. At first, I thought tree branches, but there were none near the window. The tapping went on for minutes. When I pulled my blanket over my head, it stopped. I tried to ignore it, until one night I peeked out. A pale hand pressed against the outside of the glass. Second floor window, too high for anyone to reach without a ladder. The hand stayed there, unmoving, then slid down slowly and vanished. That night, I didn't sleep at all. When I told Mom, she cracked up laughing. "You must have been half asleep, dreaming." When she saw I wasn't joking, she leaned harder into convincing me it was just a dream. My stepdad didn't believe me either. Said I made it up for attention and got a laugh out of it. But he kept the hallway light on at night. Maybe he felt less safe than he pretended. One night I heard him scream. I ran in to find him curled up under the blanket crying. When he calmed down, he said, "She stood by my door staring at me. Her eyes were all black." I believed him because of what I saw in my window. From then on, I slept with the blanket over my head every night, but that didn't stop the dreams. Her voice was dry, like leaves rubbing together. Sometimes even when I woke up, I still heard it faint but real. One night, I woke to see her standing at the foot of my bed, taller than anyone I'd ever seen. She wore a long white dress that moved even without wind. Her hair was stringy black, face pale as chalk. I tried to scream. Nothing came out. Shut my eyes. When I opened them again, she was gone. But my closet door, wide open. After that, I couldn't go near the closet anymore. Begged Mom to let me sleep in her room. She said, "You need to learn how to be brave." I think she didn't want to admit she was scared too. The worst night came during a storm, heavy rain and wind whipping the windows. I woke up to my window creaking open. Even though it was locked, the lock turned by itself. It slid all the way open, and there she stood in the doorway, not walking, floating. She drifted toward me, leaned down until her face was right before mine. I felt her cold breath on my skin. Time I screamed as loud as I could. Mom and stepdad came running. When they turned on the light, window was closed. Locked tight, no one else there. When they turned on the light, window was closed, locked tight, no one else there. They yelled at me for scaring them, but in their eyes they were worried. They yelled at me for scaring them, but in their eyes they were worried. The weird part, I don't remember clearly what happened between seeing her float toward me and screaming. The best I can say is I blacked out for a second, then remembered screaming, parents rushing in, window closed again. That's what Mom believed it was a night terror. She started taking me to therapy. We lived there 3 more years and I never got used to it. My brother stopped talking about the white lady, but not because she stopped visiting. When I was 8, I rode my bike every day after school. Small houses, big trees. I knew every crack in the sidewalk, knew where the mailman stopped. One house down the block, I liked it. Had to ride near the corner to see the yard-long driveway. Wide lawn, older men stood there most afternoons. Always wore a hat, standing at the curb where the driveway met the street, looking down the road. When I rode by, he'd wave and say hi. Never stepped off his driveway, never came onto the sidewalk. Just called out and then went back to watching his yard. He called out, "Nice bike," asked if I wanted to race to the corner. I said no, Mom'd be mad. He smiled and said, "One day." Then he talked about birds on his fence. I started looking for him when I was biking. 1 week, he stopped coming out. I rode past the house. No one stood in the driveway. Curtains closed. A few days later, I saw a woman in his backyard. I stopped my bike down the block so she wouldn't see me too close. I sat and watched for a bit. Then she opened a side door and went around the house. I pedaled slowly, looked down the block just to make sure Mom was outside. I pushed my pedals hard, ran across like my life depended on it. The house looked bigger up close. I felt not allowed to be there. Stopped at the end of the drive near the back gate. She heard me, turned. I saw a small boy with a red bike standing at the gate. Surprised but not angry, she wiped her hands on her dress like she'd been working and said, "The man you described, that's my husband." I smiled, thinking maybe she'd say he went on a trip or inside and she'd go get him, but she didn't smile. Said he had died the year before, died in his chair. His name was Harold. A cold space opened in my chest. I asked if she had a picture I wanted to see him. I looked close, and there it was, thin pale scar from ear to mouth. But the man I saw, no scar, round, plain face, smooth skin. I told her, once I saw a mark on his cheek, said he'd rub it sometimes under stubble. She said again that scar had been there for years, and that he'd hide it under stubble. His name was Harold, she repeated. He died. No one else lives here. She moved back last summer to take care of the garden. I started feeling scared then. That night I couldn't sleep. Thought about the man with the hat. Thought about the man with the hat, his laugh, the way he said my name, and that scar in the photo. One stood there. I waved from the corner, no reply, so I pedaled away. Nothing else happened for a while. Tried to forget. Made new routes on my bike. Talked with kids on other blocks. Weeks passed. Then, on a night, I woke up. Heard my name outside. Near the window, the voice, familiar, like that man from across the street used to say it. Sat bolt upright. Heart hammering against ribs. Raindrops pattered outside. I knew for sure I heard my name being called again. She came in fast and sat beside me. "Was that you?" she asked. "I heard a voice," I said. She rubbed my back, said it was just wind to calm me down. Went to the window, lifted the blinds. There's no one out there. I went to check myself. Light rain outside, but nothing else. Mom and Dad checked all windows and doors with flashlights. Said no one was there. They said maybe I dreamed it. The next morning my throat hurt from shouting so loud. Told my friends at school and they laughed at me for believing in ghosts. One friend dared me stand in that driveway at night and call his name. I didn't take it, didn't go back. Days passed. Nothing happened. Days passed. Nothing happened. Moved on. Years went by. At 18, moved away for college. Didn't move back to that house. Mom sold it while I was in school. But the memory of that man sits like a small stone inside my chest. I wonder why I didn't ask her for more pictures, why I didn't go back and press for details. Maybe they were right. Maybe I should have been braver. Maybe I should have asked about the scar or seen a wedding photo. But I was 8. Didn't think that way. A few years ago, I drove down that block just for fun. A kid rode by on a bike near the corner. The driveway, empty. For a moment, I wanted to stop. Wanted to know if anyone else heard a voice in the rain. Wanted a small answer that would close the gap. But I didn't stop. Just kept driving. The memory stays as it was, and these days I try my best to suppress it.